Raven Caldwell's signature slashes across the contract termination papers as her assistant counts aloud. That's the 4th partnership dissolved this quarter, Ms. Caldwell. Good. She doesn't look up from her mahogany desk. Caldwell Artisan Bakeries operates best when I make decisions alone. The 40-year-old CEO has built her empire on this principle: complete solitude, zero emotional compromise. Her 23 locations across Georgia generate $47 million annually, and she's achieved it all by choosing work over every relationship, every distraction, every vulnerability that could threaten her focus. Her phone buzzes. Another dating app notification she'll ignore. Sarah Chen, her business partner and only remaining friend, appears in the doorway holding 2 coffee cups. The board meeting moved to 11, Sarah announces, setting a cup on Raven's desk. Also, Mrs. Patterson from the Buckhead location called. She wants to know if you're bringing a +1 to the charity gala. Tell her I'm bringing success as my date. Raven's laugh sounds hollow even to her own ears. It's never disappointed me. Sarah's reflection wavers in the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta's skyline. Raven, when's the last time you left this office for something that wasn't business? Yesterday, board dinner. That was business. Everything I do is business. Raven stands, smoothing her charcoal Armani blazer. That's why I'm successful and not broken-hearted in some suburb wondering where my dreams went. The familiar weight of her father's Mont Blanc pen anchors her palm as she signs the final document. 3 signatures today. 3 more connections severed. 3 more potential complications eliminated. Her mother Eleanor always said emotional attachments were luxury items successful Black women couldn't afford. Rain begins pelting the windows. Raven watches couples below sharing umbrellas, their laughter rising even 40 floors up. Something tightens in her chest, a feeling she immediately recognizes as weakness. Schedule the Koreatown vendor meeting for next week, she tells Sarah. That K-pop culture store wants to discuss catering their grand opening. Easy money. Junho Min's store? Sarah's eyebrows raise. He's been calling every day. Very persistent. Persistent customers pay well. Raven gathers her briefcase. I'm taking lunch in Piedmont Park. Alone. It's the first non-business decision she's made in months, and something about the spontaneity unsettles her. But 8 years of calculated solitude has earned her everything she wanted. Wealth, respect, control. Everything except the one thing she deliberately chose never to want again. The elevator descends, carrying her toward a decision that will either validate her carefully constructed isolation or shatter it completely. She doesn't know that in 30 minutes, a careless collision with a sweaty Korean jogger will prove that some forces are stronger than even the most determined solitude. Some meetings change everything. When everything you've built to protect yourself becomes the very thing keeping you from living, what choice would you make? If you're already questioning whether Raven's solitude will survive what's coming next, subscribe now. Because this is just the beginning of a story that will challenge everything you think you know about love and success. Piedmont Park's joggers weave between the October leaves like clockwork. Precise, predictable, safe. Raven appreciates predictability. She's studying quarterly profit margins on her tablet when the collision happens. One moment, she's analyzing the Midtown location's performance. The next, she's sprawled on wet grass with financial projections scattered like fallen petals. A figure in a black hoodie kneels beside her, frantically gathering her papers. I'm so sorry. Are you hurt? The accent carries a soft Korean lilt that makes her pause. Your documents, they're getting wet. She looks up to find concerned dark eyes studying her face. He's younger than her by at least a decade, his black hair damp with sweat, wearing running gear that somehow looks intentional rather than sloppy. There's something about his genuine distress over her welfare that catches her off guard. I'm fine. She accepts his offered hand to stand, noticing the calluses that suggest he works with his hands despite his youth. Just papers. Business papers? He glances at the header of one document before handing it back. Caldwell Artisan Bakeries. Wait, you're Raven Caldwell, the CEO. The recognition changes everything. His embarrassment deepens, and she feels the familiar walls rising. Everyone wants something from successful people. And you are? Min Jun-ho. He bows slightly, a gesture that seems natural rather than performative. I own Hallyu Wave in Little 5 Points, K-pop culture store. The name clicks. Sarah's persistent caller. You're the vendor who keeps requesting meetings. Guilty. His smile transforms his entire face, and something in Raven's carefully controlled chest flutters. Though I was hoping for a less dramatic introduction. She should walk away. This is exactly the kind of unexpected variable that disrupts carefully planned days. Instead, she finds herself asking, what kind of catering are you looking for? Grand opening celebration. 300 guests, mix of Korean and American foods. I want to support local businesses, especially ones run by people who understand building something from nothing. He gestures to her scattered papers. Though maybe I'm not making the best first impression. The sincerity in his voice surprises her. Most vendors approach her with calculated charm or barely concealed desperation. Jun-ho seems genuinely interested in partnership, not just profit. Send me your requirements, she hears herself saying. My assistant will schedule something. Actually, he hesitates, then pulls out his phone. Would you maybe want to see the space first? I know you're busy, but I think you'd appreciate what we're building. Today's good if you have time. Every business instinct screams no. Spontaneous meetings lead to poor decisions. But something about his enthusiasm reminds her of her own early days, when passion mattered more than protocols. 1 hour, she agrees, surprising them both. His grin could power the city's lights. Hallyu Wave occupies a converted warehouse space that pulses with energy. Floor-to-ceiling murals of K-pop stars watch over displays of albums, merchandise, and Korean snacks. The scent of fresh paint mixes with subtle notes of ginseng tea brewing somewhere in the back. We opened 6 months ago, Jun-ho explains, his pride evident as he guides her through the space. Started with online sales only, but the community needed a physical gathering place. Raven studies the layout with professional interest. The flow is intuitive, the lighting carefully calculated to highlight products without overwhelming customers. Your foot traffic projections? Conservative estimate, 1,500 weekly once-word spreads. K-pop's mainstream now, not just niche anymore. He stops beside a section dedicated to Korean cookbooks. That's actually why I wanted to work with you specifically. My bakeries don't typically do Korean fusion. Not yet. His eyes light up. But imagine introducing Atlanta to authentic Korean pastries. Honey bread, sweet potato cakes, green tea macarons. You'd corner an underserved market while honoring both our cultures. The business proposition is sound, but something deeper draws her attention. Jun-ho speaks about cultural bridge building with the same passion she once felt about her first bakery. Before cynicism taught her that passion was a luxury she couldn't afford. You're not just selling products, she observes. You're creating community. Exactly. He leads her toward a small cafe area under construction. Food brings people together. Music brings people together. Why not combine them? They discuss logistics for 20 minutes, but Raven finds herself studying Jun-ho's expressions more than his spreadsheets. When he smiles, genuine warmth crinkles the corners of his eyes. When he explains his vision, his hands move expressively, painting pictures in the air. She hasn't felt this engaged in a business conversation in years. There's something else, he says as they finish reviewing his proposals. I need to be transparent about my situation. Here it comes. The catch. The hidden agenda. What kind of situation? My family in Korea invested everything in my American dream. Everyone they had. His voice grows quiet. If this doesn't succeed, I'm not the only one who pays the price. Most people would have hidden this vulnerability. The admission should make her cautious, but instead it makes her respect him more. He's willing to risk everything for his vision, exactly like she once did. That's not a situation, she tells him. That's motivation. Relief floods his features. So you'll consider the partnership? I'll consider more than that. The words escape before she can stop them. Would you like to have dinner? Tomorrow night, to discuss the proposal further. The invitation surprises them both. Raven hasn't initiated a social meeting in 8 years, let alone one that blurs professional boundaries. I'd like that, Junho says softly. Very much. As she walks back to her car, Raven realizes she's scheduled something that isn't business for the second time today. The sensation feels foreign and terrifying, and somehow absolutely right. But she doesn't notice the man in the expensive navy suit photographing her exit from across the street. Antonio's restaurant buzzes with intimate conversations and soft jazz, but Raven barely notices the ambiance. Across from her, Junho listens with complete attention as she explains the complexities of scaling a food business. The third location nearly killed us, she admits, twirling pasta around her fork. I was 28, stubborn, convinced I could handle everything myself. What changed? Sarah. The mention of her business partner brings a genuine smile. She walked into my office with financial projections that proved I was an idiot, then offered to become my partner before I could fire her for insubordination. Junho laughs, a rich sound that makes other diners glance their direction. Sounds like she saw potential you couldn't see in yourself. She saw disaster coming and decided to help me avoid it. Raven sips her wine, studying Junho's face in the candlelight. What about you? Any partners keeping you honest? Just my conscience. His expression grows thoughtful. And weekly video calls with my parents reminding me that failure isn't an option. That sounds lonely. It is. The admission hangs between them like a bridge. Building something meaningful takes sacrifice, but sometimes I wonder if I'm sacrificing too much. Raven sets down her glass, struck by how perfectly he's articulated her own fears. How old are you, Junho? 29. He meets her gaze directly. And before you ask, yes, I know you're older. No, it doesn't matter to me. The elephant in the room, addressed with characteristic honesty. People will talk. Let them. His confidence surprises her. I've spent my whole life proving I'm serious despite my age. If they want to waste time gossiping instead of recognizing good business, that's their loss. Thunder rumbles overhead as they leave the restaurant. Atlanta's autumn storms arrive without warning, and this one promises to be fierce. Rain begins just as they reach the sidewalk. My car's 2 blocks away, Raven says, watching sheets of water cascade from the awning above. Junho produces a black umbrella from seemingly nowhere. Allow me. They hurry through the downpour, pressed close together under the small canopy of protection. Raven becomes acutely aware of Junho's warmth beside her, the subtle scent of his cologne mixing with clean rain air. At her car, they pause. Water streams down around them like a private curtain, isolating them from the rest of the world. Junho's hair is damp despite the umbrella, and droplets catch in his eyelashes. Thank you, she says quietly. For dinner, for the conversation, for Raven. His voice stops her words. Can I tell you something? She nods, not trusting her voice. I've been thinking about you since yesterday, not just as a business partner. His honesty is disarming. I know this complicates things, but I had to say it. The rain pounds harder, creating a cocoon of sound around them. Raven feels something crack inside her chest. A wall she's maintained for 8 years, suddenly developing fissures. Junho, I know you've been hurt. He steps closer, close enough that she can see her reflection in his eyes. I know you've built walls for good reasons, but I also know you feel this too. He's right. The connection sparking between them is undeniable, electric, terrifying in its intensity. Every instinct screams for her to run, to protect the empire she's built on emotional isolation. Instead, she reaches up and touches his face. The kiss happens like lightning, sudden, illuminating, transforming everything it touches. Junho's lips are soft and sure, his hands gentle as they frame her face. Raven forgets about age differences, and business complications, and 8 years of carefully maintained solitude. For one perfect moment, she remembers what it feels like to be alive. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Raven sees something that makes her blood freeze. 40 floors above them, light glows in her office window. Eleanor's silhouette stands perfectly still, watching. "We should," Raven starts. "I know." Junho follows her gaze upward. "Your mother?" "My mother." The words taste like impending doom. Eleanor Caldwell has seen everything, and Raven knows her carefully controlled world is about to become very complicated. The penthouse elevator carries Raven upward like a gilded guillotine. She's delayed this conversation for 3 days, but Eleanor's summons cannot be ignored indefinitely. The Buckhead high-rise represents everything her mother values: prestige, position, power wielded with surgical precision. Eleanor waits in her pristine living room, every silver hair perfectly arranged, her navy Chanel suit unmarred by time or sentiment. At 65, she remains formidable, a retired federal judge who views emotion as evidence of weakness. "Sit." Eleanor's voice could cut crystal. Raven perches on the white leather sofa, feeling like a defendant awaiting sentence. "Mother, I saw you Thursday night, in the rain, with that boy." Eleanor's words fall like hammer blows. "Explain." "His name is Junho Min. He's 29 years old, owns a successful business, and we're exploring a partnership." Each fact delivered with corporate precision, as if professional language could sanitize personal truth. Partnership. Eleanor's laugh holds no warmth. "Is that what we're calling it now?" "We had dinner to discuss." "You had dinner to indulge a fantasy that will destroy everything you've built." Eleanor stands, her presence filling the room like ice water. "Do you remember why you chose solitude, Raven? Do you remember what Marcus Thompson cost you?" The name hits like a physical blow. Marcus, her former business partner, former lover, former destroyer of dreams. This isn't about Marcus. This is exactly about Marcus. Eleanor moves to the window overlooking the city. "You were 32, successful, infatuated with a charming man who promised to build your empire together. How did that end?" Raven's chest tightens. "That was different." "Different how? Because this one is younger, Korean? You think age and race change fundamental male nature?" Eleanor's voice drips with disappointment. "I raised you to be smarter than this." "You raised me to be afraid," Raven counters, finding her voice. "There's a difference." Eleanor whirls around, her composure cracking for just a moment. "I raised you to survive in a world that wants to see successful black women fail. Emotion makes us vulnerable. Love makes us stupid. You think I don't know what I sacrificed for your future?" The admission hangs between them. Eleanor's own romantic tragedy, never discussed, but always present. Raven has always suspected her mother's fierce independence came at great personal cost. "Maybe your sacrifices don't have to be mine," Raven says quietly. "They do if you want to keep what you've built." Eleanor opens her purse, withdrawing a manila folder. "I've had Junho Min investigated." The folder hits the coffee table like a bomb. Raven stares at it, horrified. "You what?" "His business is leveraged beyond sustainability. His family in Korea mortgaged their home to fund his American venture. He's one failed quarter away from losing everything." Eleanor's voice is merciless. "Do you think it's coincidence that he's suddenly interested in the wealthy CEO who could solve all his problems?" Each word feels like a betrayal, but Raven forces herself to open the folder. Financial documents, immigration records, family photographs that feel voyeuristic to examine. The numbers paint a picture of desperate ambition, but they don't change what she felt in Junho's arms. Even if this is true, even if. Eleanor's eyebrows rise. The evidence is right there. Even if his situation is desperate, that doesn't mean his feelings aren't real. Raven closes the folder. People can need help and still care genuinely. People can also be excellent actors when millions of dollars are at stake. Eleanor returns to her seat, her composure restored. I'm not asking you to end this association. I'm telling you. The ultimatum arrives dressed in maternal concern, but its edges are sharp as glass. You can't control my personal life. I can control the family trust. I can control your board position. I can control whether Caldwell Artisan Bakeries remains a family legacy or becomes another cautionary tale about successful women who confused lust with love. The threat is real. Eleanor holds significant power over Raven's empire, and she's clearly willing to use it. But something has changed in the 3 days since that kiss in the rain. Something that makes Raven willing to fight. If you do this, Raven says quietly, you'll lose me completely. Eleanor's mask slips for just a moment, revealing something that might be pain. I'd rather lose you than bury you. The words echo in Raven's mind as she leaves the penthouse. Eleanor's fears come from a place of love, however twisted, but they also come from a place of trauma that Raven refuses to inherit. She has a choice to make, and for the first time in 8 years, she knows which path leads toward life, instead of merely survival. The Ritz-Carlton bar represents neutral ground, expensive enough to discourage casual eavesdropping, public enough to prevent outright warfare. Raven chooses a corner table and orders wine she doesn't want while waiting for a ghost she hoped never to see again. Marcus Thompson arrives precisely on time, because punctuality was always his weapon of choice. 42 years old and still devastatingly handsome, he wears success like cologne, expensive, noticeable, slightly overwhelming. His navy Tom Ford suit probably costs more than most people's monthly rent. Raven. He slides into the opposite chair with familiar confidence. You look extraordinary. Marcus. She doesn't return the compliment. Sarah said you wanted to meet. Make it quick. Always direct. His smile holds calculated charm. That's what I always loved about you. Love. The word feels like profanity in his mouth. What do you want? To apologize, to explain. He signals the waitress for his usual, single malt, neat. I know how things ended between us was, you stole my recipes and opened 3 competing locations using my own business model. The facts arrive without emotion, each one precise as a scalpel cut. You nearly destroyed everything I built, then disappeared with $2 million from our joint accounts. I made mistakes. He leans forward, deploying the same earnest expression that once made her believe in their shared future. I was young, ambitious, scared of being overshadowed by your success. You were 34, hardly a child, old enough to know better. His whiskey arrives, and he cradles the glass like a prayer. I've spent 8 years regretting those choices. Raven studies his face for tells, the micro-expressions she learned to read during their 2-year partnership. He's nervous, which surprises her. Marcus Thompson nervous is like seeing a shark express anxiety. What do you really want? She repeats. A second chance. He meets her eyes directly. Not romantically. I know that bridge burned completely, but professionally. I want to make amends. The proposal takes her off guard. Professionally how? I've built something impressive in Charleston. Thompson Gourmet Foods, 17 locations, expanding into Virginia next quarter. But success feels hollow when it's built on betrayal. He pulls out his phone, showing her a sleek storefront photo. I want to merge our companies, equal partnership this time, complete transparency. The offer is staggering. Marcus's success is real. She's tracked his progress through industry publications, with the careful attention she once devoted to enemies. A merger would create a southeastern food empire worth over $200 million. Why now? She asks. Because I'm dying. The words hit like ice water. Marcus's composure cracks slightly, revealing something that might be genuine fear. Stage 2 pancreatic cancer. 18 months if I'm lucky, maybe less if I'm not. Raven's wine glass freezes halfway to her lips. Whatever she expected, it wasn't this. Marcus, I don't want your pity. He straightens, pride reasserting itself. I want your partnership. One last chance to build something meaningful before time runs out. The revelation changes everything and nothing simultaneously. Marcus's mortality doesn't erase his betrayal, but it explains his sudden appearance. Dying men seek redemption with the same intensity they once pursued profit. Even if I considered this, she says carefully, why would I trust you again? Because I have nothing left to steal. His laugh holds bitter edges. Because legacy matters more than money when you're facing the end. Because... He hesitates, vulnerability cracking his polished facade. Because I never stopped loving you, even after you rightfully hated me. The confession hangs between them like smoke from a doused fire. Raven feels nothing. No anger, no sadness, no residual affection. Marcus Thompson is a chapter she closed so completely that his declaration feels like news from someone else's life. I need time to think, she says finally. Of course. He stands, leaving a business card on the table. But don't take too long, for both our sakes. As he walks away, Raven notices the slight tremor in his left hand, the first physical sign of the disease eating him alive. She feels something that might be compassion, but it's distant, clinical, like sympathy for a stranger's misfortune. Her phone buzzes with a text from Jun-ho. How did it go with the mysterious meeting? Hope you're okay. The simple care in his message illuminates the difference between past and present, between manipulation disguised as love and genuine concern offered freely. Marcus represents everything she built her solitude to avoid. Jun-ho represents everything she might gain by abandoning it. The choice should be simple, but Eleanor's warnings echo like prophecy, and Marcus's offer glimmers like fool's gold in firelight. Success and security or love and risk, the eternal equation that has no perfect solution. But for the first time in 8 years, Raven knows which answer her heart prefers. The Caldwell Artisan Bakery's flagship store closes at 8, but Sarah remains in the office above, surrounded by financial projections and the comfortable chaos of a business built on trust. Raven finds her there, still wearing yesterday's clothes, her usually perfect hair escaping its professional constraints. You've been avoiding me, Raven announces, settling into the chair across from Sarah's desk. I've been busy. Sarah doesn't look up from her laptop screen. The Highland Park location needs new ovens, and the Decatur store is 3 weeks behind on inventory reports. Sarah. Raven's voice carries the weight of 13 years of partnership, friendship, and shared dreams. Look at me. When Sarah finally raises her eyes, Raven sees something she's never seen before. Guilt so profound it seems to physically pain her. Sarah Chen has been her anchor, her conscience, her sister in everything but blood. They've survived market crashes, equipment failures, and the aftermath of Marcus's betrayal together. What aren't you telling me? Raven asks gently. Sarah's composure crumbles like day-old pastry. I knew. The words come out as a whisper. About Marcus. I knew where he was. The confession hits like a physical blow. What do you mean you knew? I mean, I've known his location for 6 years. Charleston, then Richmond, then back to Charleston when he got sick. Sarah's hands shake as she closes her laptop. I've been tracking him through industry contacts, mutual acquaintances, financial filings. Raven's world tilts sideways. Why? To protect you. The answer comes fast, desperate. To make sure he never caught you off guard, never showed up without warning. I thought if I knew where he was, I could control the threat. By lying to me for 6 years? By shielding you from information that would only cause pain. Sarah stands, pacing to the window overlooking Midtown's evening lights. You were healing, building something amazing. I didn't want his shadow poisoning your progress. The betrayal cuts deeper than Marcus's original deception, because it comes from someone she trusted completely. What else haven't you told me? Sarah's silence stretches long enough to become an answer. When she finally speaks, her voice barely audits above a whisper. He called me, 2 months ago. Said he wanted to reach out to you, make amends. And I told him you'd moved on, that any contact would be unwelcome. Sarah turns from the window, her face streaked with tears. I thought I was protecting you. You thought you were controlling me. The distinction matters. and they both know it. My life, my choices, my right to decide how to handle my past. Yes, the admission comes naked of excuse or justification. I was terrified you'd take him back. Take him back? Raven's laugh holds no humor. Sarah, I haven't thought about Marcus Thompson as anything other than a cautionary tale in years. But when you started seeing Junho, when you began opening up again, Sarah's voice breaks. I panicked. I thought any crack in your armor would let Marcus slip back in. The psychology becomes clear. Sarah's possessive protection, her skepticism about Junho, her subtle discouragement of any relationship that might change their dynamic. Fear masquerading as friendship, control disguised as care. You told Eleanor about Junho, Raven realizes. The investigation, the financial records, that came from you. Sarah nods miserably. I thought if she could prove he was using you, you'd end things before you got hurt. Each revelation lands like a separate betrayal. The two people Raven trusted most, her mother and her business partner, conspiring to manage her life like a particularly challenging business acquisition. Get out, Raven says quietly. Raven, please. Get out of my building, out of my business, out of my life. The words come calm and final as judgment. I'll have legal draw up separation papers. You can keep your 20% stake, but your active partnership ends now. Sarah's face crumbles. 13 years of friendship, and you're throwing it away for a man you've known 3 weeks? I'm throwing it away because you lied to me for 6 years. Raven stands, her composure absolute. Because you decided I was too fragile to handle my own truth. Because you tried to control my happiness instead of trusting my judgment. He's going to hurt you. Sarah's final arrow fired in desperation. Junho, Marcus, all of them. They see dollar signs when they look at you, not a person. Maybe. Raven moves toward the door, her hand on the handle. But that's my risk to take, my mistake to make. You don't get to steal that choice from me. The office door closes with quiet finality, leaving Sarah alone with the ruins of a friendship built on deception disguised as devotion. Raven walks to her car through Atlanta's cooling night air, feeling simultaneously liberated and devastated. Her phone shows missed calls from Junho, texts asking if she's okay, offering dinner or conversation, or simply companionship. The simple kindness makes her eyes burn with unshed tears. For 8 years, she's trusted the wrong people for the right reasons. Maybe it's time to trust the right person, regardless of the risk. Junho's apartment above Hallyu Wave smells like jasmine tea and fresh paint. Books in Korean and English line makeshift shelves, and K-pop posters share wall space with business certificates and family photographs. The space feels lived in, hopeful, real, in a way that Raven's sterile penthouse never has. I can't believe Sarah did that, he says, handing her a steaming mug. 13 years of partnership, and she was manipulating things behind the scenes? Raven curls into his small sofa, grateful for the warmth radiating from his presence. She thought she was protecting me. That's the hell of it. Her motives were love, even if her methods were toxic. Love doesn't lie. Junho settles beside her, careful to maintain respectful distance. Love trusts the other person to handle truth, even when it's difficult. The observation hits home with surgical precision. Sarah's version of love was possessive, controlling, fearful. Eleanor's love operates like military strategy, viewing emotion as weakness to be managed. Neither trusted Raven's capacity to navigate her own life. What about your family? She asks. Do they try to control your choices? Junho's expression grows complex. Korean families have expectations, cultural obligations. But control? He shakes his head. They trust me to honor our values while building my own path. Even when that path involves a 40-year-old black woman? They want me to be happy. He sets down his mug, turning to face her fully. Color doesn't matter to them. Age doesn't matter. Success matters, but not the kind measured only in money. The simplicity of acceptance feels foreign after a lifetime of conditional love. Your parents sound remarkable. They're scared, he admits. They invested everything in my American dream, and success isn't guaranteed. But they trust my judgment, even when they don't understand my choices. Thunder rumbles outside, another autumn storm rolling through Atlanta like clockwork. Rain begins pattering against the windows, creating intimate acoustics in the small space. Raven watches droplets race down the glass and remembers another rainy night, another moment of truth. Jun-ho. She turns to find him watching her with patient intensity. There's something I need to tell you. I'm listening. Marcus offered me a business merger. $200 million, complete control of the Southeast market. The words feel heavy as stones. It would make me one of the most powerful food executives in the country. Junho's face doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. Understanding, perhaps, or resignation. What did you tell him? I told him I needed time to think. She sets down her mug, kneading her hands free for this conversation. But, Jun-ho, I want you to know. You should take it. His voice is quiet but certain. It's an incredible opportunity. The response surprises her. Most men would react with jealousy, possessiveness, demands for reassurance. Jun-ho offers selfless support, even when it might cost him everything. You don't understand, she continues. Taking that deal would mean working with Marcus again, possibly traveling, definitely complicating whatever this is between us. I understand perfectly. He reaches for her hands, his touch warm and steadying. I understand that you've worked 20 years to build something extraordinary, and this could take it to the next level. I understand that opportunities like this don't come twice. And if it means losing you? Junho's smile holds infinite tenderness. Raven, you can't lose what you never owned. If you choose your business over our relationship, that doesn't diminish what we've shared. It just means you prioritize your dreams over mine. The maturity in his response humbles her. At 29, Jun-ho possesses emotional intelligence that eluded her at 40. He offers love without strings attached, support without conditions, trust without guarantees. What if I don't want to choose? She whispers. What if I want both, the business success and whatever this is between us? Then we figure it out together. His thumb traces circles on her palm. But Raven, you have to decide what you want, not what others expect you to want. The distinction crystallizes everything that's been clouding her judgment. Eleanor expects her to choose safety. Sarah expected her to choose solitude. Marcus expects her to choose money. Only Jun-ho encourages her to choose authentically, even if that choice doesn't include him. I want you, she says, the admission escaping before caution can stop it. I want this, whatever this becomes. I want to find out if love and success can coexist in my life. Junho's response comes in the form of a kiss that tastes like jasmine tea and promises. His lips are soft and sure, his hands gentle as they frame her face. Rain continues pattering against the windows, creating a private symphony for a moment that feels like coming home. When they break apart, both breathing harder, Raven sees her reflection in his eyes and barely recognizes the woman looking back. This version of herself appears softer, more alive, radiating a light that has nothing to do with professional achievement. Stay, Jun-ho whispers against her lips. Tonight, let me show you how love feels when it's not asking you to give up who you are. For the first time in 8 years, Raven chooses desire over discipline, connection over control, love over loneliness. She stays and discovers that some risks are worth everything. Eleanor Caldwell's private study resembles a judicial chamber. Leather-bound law books, crystal decanters, portraits of distinguished ancestors who built their legacy on determination and sacrifice. She sits behind her mahogany desk at 2 a.m, staring at a photograph that shouldn't exist but does. The image is 35 years old, edges yellowed with time and memory. A younger Eleanor stands beside a Korean man whose smile mirrors Junho's warmth. Doctor. James Park, cardiac surgeon, brilliant mind, impossible love. The The man who taught her that some connections transcend logic, some hearts refuse to follow rules. She'd hidden this photograph for decades, buried the memory so deep that even she sometimes forgot it existed. But seeing Raven with Junho has excavated everything she spent a lifetime trying to forget. Her phone rings, Raven's ringtone, chosen specifically for its authoritative tone. Eleanor almost doesn't answer, but motherhood trumps even the most carefully constructed emotional armor. "I know what you're doing." Raven's voice cuts through the darkness. "The manipulation, the control, the investigation. It ends now. You have no idea what I'm doing." Eleanor's response comes sharper than intended. "I'm trying to save you from repeating my mistakes." "Your mistakes?" The surprise in Raven's voice confirms Eleanor's suspicions. She's never shared this story, never revealed the source of her fierce independence. "What mistakes?" Eleanor closes her eyes, feeling the weight of 35 years of silence. "I fell in love with someone I shouldn't have. Someone who made me forget everything I'd worked to achieve." The admission hangs in the phone connection like smoke from a doused fire. Eleanor can hear Raven's breathing, can almost feel her daughter processing this unexpected revelation. "Tell me," Raven says softly. "James Park. I was 30, a rising prosecutor with political ambitions. He was 35, head of cardiac surgery at Emory. Korean-American, brilliant, absolutely wrong for someone in my position." Eleanor's voice grows distant with memory. "We met at a fundraiser. He made me laugh, really laugh, not the calculated responses I'd perfected for public events." "What happened?" "I fell completely, stupidly, helplessly in love." The words taste like betrayal of everything she's taught her daughter. "For 6 months I forgot about my career, my reputation, my carefully planned future. I would have married him, given up everything for him." Eleanor stands, moving to the window that overlooks the city James once called home. Then reality intervened. The press discovered our relationship. Editorial cartoons depicting the ambitious black prosecutor and her foreign doctor. Death threats, professional sabotage. My career nearly ended before it truly began. "But you became a judge," Raven points out. "You succeeded despite the controversy." "I succeeded because I ended the relationship." Eleanor's voice cracks slightly. "I chose ambition over love, security over happiness. James begged me to fight for us, to ignore the noise and focus on what we meant to each other. And I was a coward." The admission costs Eleanor everything. "I was terrified of losing what I'd worked so hard to build. I convinced myself that love was a luxury successful black women couldn't afford." The parallel to Raven's current situation needs no explanation. Eleanor has spent 35 years believing her choice was correct. That sacrifice was the price of achievement. But watching her daughter's face light up when she talks about Junho has forced Eleanor to confront a devastating possibility. "What if I was wrong?" she whispers into the phone. "Mother, what if I traded happiness for hollow success? What if the career I protected so carefully gave me power but cost me everything that makes power worth having?" Eleanor's carefully constructed composure crumbles. "What if I've spent 35 years justifying the worst mistake of my life?" Raven's silence speaks volumes. Eleanor can practically hear her daughter's mind working, processing the implications of this revelation. "James reached out to me once," Eleanor continues. 5 years after I ended things. He'd moved to California, remarried, had children. He said he forgave me, that he understood my choice, that he hoped I'd found happiness. Had you? I'd found success, respect, security, everything I thought I wanted." Eleanor returns to her desk, touching the photograph with trembling fingers. "But happiness? I buried that possibility the day I chose fear over love." "It's not too late," Raven says gently. "You're 65, not 95, if you wanted to find him. It's too late for me." Eleanor cuts off the suggestion. "But maybe it's not too late for you." The conversation shifts like tectonic plates repositioning. Eleanor has spent weeks trying to convince Raven that love is dangerous, that emotional attachment leads to professional destruction. Now she's confronting the possibility that the opposite might be true. Junho is a good man, she admits reluctantly. My investigation proved that much. He's struggling financially, but not because he's irresponsible. He's carrying the weight of family expectations while building something meaningful. Mother, are you actually approving of my relationship? I'm saying maybe I've been wrong about everything that matters. Eleanor looks at James's photograph one final time, then places it gently in her desk drawer. Maybe success without love isn't success at all. The call ends with tentative peace between mother and daughter, but Eleanor remains in her study until dawn, wondering how many years she's lost to fear disguised as wisdom. The call comes at 6 a.m, jarring Junho from dreams of Raven's laughter. His father's voice carries across 8,000 miles of Pacific Ocean and 3 decades of sacrifice, but the words still hit like physical blows. The bank called yesterday. Mr. Min's English, usually precise despite his accent, stumbles over emotion. They're foreclosing on the house next month. Junho sits up in bed, fully awake now. What? You said the payments were current. Were current. Past tense. His father's voice grows smaller, older. Your mother's medical bills, the mortgage extension fees, the currency exchange rates. Everything cost more than we calculated. The mathematics of family obligation crash through Junho's consciousness like falling dominoes. His parents mortgaged their soul home to fund his American dream. Every month he sends money to cover the payments, but apparently it hasn't been enough. How much do we need? He asks, already calculating options. $60,000, American. The sum lands like a death sentence. We have until November 1st. Nov 1st, 2 weeks away. Junho's bank account holds maybe $3,000. Hallyu Wave is profitable but not liquid. Most of his revenue gets reinvested in inventory and expansion plans. His American dream is about to cost his parents their Korean reality. There might be a way, he says slowly. Let me make some calls. But even as he promises solutions, Junho knows the truth. His only significant asset is his stake in Hallyu Wave, and selling it would mean abandoning everything he's built in America. The irony is bitter. Success has never felt so much like failure. He calls Raven after his parents hang up, but her phone goes straight to voicemail. She's probably in early meetings, making decisions that affect millions of dollars while he's calculating how to scrape together thousands. The knock on his door comes at 8:30, just as he's opening the store for another day of pretending everything is fine. The visitor is a middle-aged white man in an expensive suit, carrying a briefcase that screams corporate power. Mr. Min, I'm David Richardson, representing Thompson Gourmet Foods. The man's smile is pleasant and predatory. I understand you're facing some financial challenges. Junho's blood chills. I'm sorry, what? Marcus Thompson has authorized me to make you an offer. Richardson opens his briefcase with practiced efficiency. He'd like to purchase your business. Full market value, cash payment, quick closing. My business isn't for sale. Everything is for sale, Mr. Min. The question is price. Richardson slides a contract across the counter. $200,000. Enough to solve your family's problems and start fresh somewhere else. The offer is simultaneously generous and insulting. $200,000 would save his parents' home, but it would also end his American dream entirely. More importantly, it would remove him from Raven's world permanently. How does Marcus Thompson know about my situation? Junho asks. Mr. Thompson is very thorough in his business dealings. Richardson's smile doesn't reach his eyes. He researches all potential complications. The euphemism makes everything clear. Junho isn't just a business opportunity to Marcus. He's a romantic obstacle to be purchased and removed. The offer isn't generosity. It's strategy. I need time to think, Junho says. Of course, but don't wait too long. Richardson stands, straightening his tie. Financial problems have a way of snowballing quickly. After Richardson leaves, Junho stares at the contract for a full hour. The numbers blur together. $60,000 to save his family, $200,000 to sell his soul, impossible math that has no clean solutions. His phone buzzes with a text from Raven. "Dinner tonight? I have something important to discuss." Junho types and deletes a dozen responses. How do you tell the woman you love that you might have to disappear from her life to save your family? How do you explain that love is a luxury you can no longer afford? Finally, he sends, "Rain check, store emergency." It's not technically a lie, but it feels like the first step down a path that leads away from everything that matters. Junho looks around Hallyu Wave, his dream made manifest in displays and music and community, and wonders if some dreams cost too much to keep. The contract remains on his counter like a surrender document, waiting for a signature that would solve everything and destroy everything simultaneously. The Ritz-Carlton boardroom overlooks Atlanta's glittering skyline, but Raven sees only the contract spread before her like a roadmap to everything she's ever wanted. Marcus sits across the polished mahogany table, his lawyer beside him, both wearing expressions of barely contained triumph. 200 million, equal partnership, complete operational control, Marcus summarizes, his voice carrying the same smooth confidence that once made her believe in shared dreams. You'd become the most powerful food executive in the Southeast overnight. Raven's Mont Blanc pen feels heavy in her palm, her father's legacy, the tool she's used to build an empire through careful, calculated decisions. She's read every clause, consulted her attorneys, analyzed the projections until the numbers blur together into one undeniable conclusion. This deal would achieve everything she's worked 20 years to accomplish. "There's one condition," she says, her voice steady as surgical steel. "Non-compete clauses for all existing partnerships. I won't have competitors undercutting our market position." Marcus's smile sharpens. "Of course. That would include small operations, boutique partnerships, any arrangements that might compromise our efficiency. The language is corporate, sanitized, but its meaning cuts like glass. Signing this contract would end her partnership with Junho before it truly begins. She could blame legal obligations, cite fiduciary responsibilities, hide behind business necessity. "Ms. Caldwell?" the lawyer prompts gently. "We're prepared to execute immediately if you're ready." Raven's signature hovers over the contract like a sword suspended above everything she's built on solitude. One signature, and she becomes untouchable. Wealthy beyond calculation, powerful beyond challenge, successful beyond measure, also alone beyond redemption. Her phone buzzes, a text from Junho. "Miss you. Hope your meeting goes well. Can't wait to see you later." The simple message illuminates everything the contract would cost her. Junho's warmth, his laugh, his way of making her feel alive instead of merely successful. The possibility of love coexisting with ambition instead of being sacrificed to it. But love is dangerous. Love makes people vulnerable. Love has already started changing her priorities, softening her edges, making her consider choices she would never have entertained during 8 years of protective isolation. Eleanor's voice echoes in her memory. Emotion makes us vulnerable. Love makes us stupid. Sarah's warnings resurface. They see dollar signs when they look at you, not a person. Even Junho's financial struggles, while not his fault, create complications she doesn't need. What if Eleanor and Sarah are right? What if she's repeating old mistakes with new players? Raven? Marcus leans forward, concern creasing his handsome features. "You seem uncertain." "I'm not uncertain." She straightens, feeling familiar armor clicking into place around her heart. "I'm being thorough." The pen moves across paper with surgical precision, her signature flowing like water across white space. Each letter commits her to a future built on everything she understands: profit margins and market dominance and the sweet certainty of success achieved through individual excellence. Excellent. Marcus's relief is palpable. "Welcome to the future, partner." Contracts are photocopied, hands are shaken, champagne is opened. Raven performs her part in the corporate choreography, while something inside her chest turns to stone. She's made the safe choice, the smart choice, The choice that protects everything she's built through 20 years of sacrifice. The choice that cost her the first man she's loved in 8 years. Her phone rings as she's leaving the hotel. Junho's ringtone, chosen for its gentle warmth. She stares at the screen until it goes to voicemail, then powers off the device entirely. Some conversations are too difficult to have immediately. Some explanations require time to perfect. The drive home through Atlanta's evening traffic gives her space to practice the words she'll use to explain why business must come before pleasure, why security matters more than romance, why she's choosing the path that leads toward power instead of passion. All the words sound hollow as dust, but they're the ones that will keep her safe and successful, and utterly, completely alone. Junho's signature slashes across the sale contract at 11 p.m., witnessed only by empty coffee cups and the weight of impossible choices. David Richardson's check sits beside the papers. $200,000 that will save his family's home and end his American dream in one devastating transaction. He's signed Hallyu Wave over to Thompson Gourmet Foods, effective immediately. Tomorrow, his store becomes another corporate acquisition, his carefully curated community space, transformed into whatever maximizes Marcus Thompson's profit margins. The irony tastes bitter as poison. He's selling his dream to fund Raven's ex-lover's empire, sacrificing his future to enable the very man who represents everything threatening their relationship. But his parents' house matters more than his pride. Their security trumps his ambition. Family obligation supersedes personal desire, even when personal desire has Raven's face and feels like coming home. His phone holds 17 missed calls from Raven, 12 text messages that grew increasingly concerned as the evening progressed. The final message simply reads, "Please call me. Whatever's wrong, we can figure it out together." The faith in her words breaks something in his chest. Raven believes they can solve anything together, but some problems require solitude to solve properly. Some sacrifices must be made alone to protect the people who matter most. He types and deletes a dozen responses before settling on, "Had to handle some family business. We'll call tomorrow." It's not technically a lie, but it feels like betrayal of everything they've promised each other. Tomorrow, he'll explain that Marcus's offer was too generous to refuse, that business opportunities sometimes require difficult choices, that he's decided to return to Korea to be closer to family. He won't mention that Marcus orchestrated the entire situation, that selling Hallyu Wave was the price of keeping Raven's new partnership clean of complications. He won't explain that his financial crisis was real, but the solution was manipulated by a man who views love as a business problem to be solved. The truth would only hurt her, and Junho has absorbed enough pain for both of them. His laptop displays his parents' Seoul address, where he'll return once the sale finalizes. He's already researched flights, transfer programs for his store's employees, liquidation options for inventory too Korean-specific to interest Marcus's operation. Everything can be arranged. Everything can be solved. Everything except the way his heart breaks a little more each time Raven's ringtone plays through his empty apartment. At midnight, he walks through Hallyu Wave one final time, touching displays he arranged, straightening posters that won't be there tomorrow, breathing in the scent of jasmine tea that will be replaced by whatever corporate uniformity Marcus prefers. 6 months of dreams, reduced to boxes of inventory, and a check that solves everything except the problem that matters most. His phone rings again. Raven, persistent in her care, faithful in her concern. Junho almost answers, almost tells her the truth, almost begs her to find a solution that doesn't require him to disappear from her life completely. Instead, he powers off the phone and begins packing. Some sacrifices are too large for love to bear. Some problems can only be solved by walking away from everything that makes life worth living. Some men must choose between saving their families and keeping their hearts intact. Junho chooses family, as he always knew he would. But the choice feels like dying while still breathing, like losing everything while technically winning everything. The empty store echoes with silence and sacrifice, holding space for a dream that ended before it truly began. 3 days pass in a haze of corporate meetings and sleepless nights. Raven throws herself into merger preparations with Marcus, while Jun-ho's silence grows from concerning to devastating. His last text, "Family emergency, will call soon," came 48 hours ago, followed by digital silence that feels like abandonment. She's left 17 voicemails, each more desperate than the last. Her calls go straight to an automated message. "The number you have dialed is temporarily out of service." Sarah arrives at her office at 8 a.m. bearing coffee and the careful expression of someone delivering terrible news. Despite their fractured friendship, she still monitors industry gossip with the precision of a corporate spy. "I have information about Jun-ho," Sarah announces without preamble. "You're not going to like it." Raven looks up from financial projections, her stomach already plummeting. "What kind of information?" "He sold Hallyu Wave 3 days ago to Thompson Gourmet Foods." Sarah places a printed news article on the desk. A small business section item announcing Marcus's acquisition of a promising Korean cultural enterprise. The words blur together as Raven processes the betrayal. Jun-ho sold his dream to her new business partner, effectively choosing money over their relationship. The timing, immediately after she signed the merger contract, feels like calculated revenge. $200,000. Sarah continues, her voice carrying the bitter satisfaction of someone whose warnings proved accurate. "Cash payment, immediate closing. He's already cleared out the store." Raven stares at the article until the letters swim. "Have you seen him?" "He's gone. Apartment empty, forwarding address in Seoul. His flight left yesterday morning." Sarah settles into the chair across from Raven's desk, her expression mixing sympathy with vindication. "I'm sorry, Raven. I know you cared about him." The past tense hits like a slap. Cared, not care. As if Jun-ho's departure automatically ended whatever they built together. As if love could be terminated as easily as business contracts. Why didn't he tell me? The question emerges smaller than intended, vulnerable in a way Raven rarely allows herself to be. Maybe because he knew you'd try to talk him out of it. Maybe because $200,000 was more appealing than whatever you were offering. Sarah's words carry no malice, just the weary recognition of patterns she's watched repeat. Men see successful women as solutions to their problems, not as people worth loving. The explanation should comfort her. Validation that choosing business over romance was correct. That Marcus's merger represents security while Jun-ho's affection was merely opportunism. Instead, it feels like acid in her chest. "I need to go," Raven says abruptly, grabbing her keys. "Where?" "Little 5 Points. I want to see for myself." The drive takes 20 minutes through morning traffic. 20 minutes for doubt to crystallize into desperate hope that Sarah got the story wrong. That Jun-ho's silence has some explanation that doesn't involve betrayal and abandonment. Hallyu Wave's storefront stands empty behind brown paper covering the windows. The vibrant murals celebrating Korean culture have been painted over with corporate beige, and cheerful neon signs lie stacked in a dumpster, like discarded dreams. Through the window, she glimpses workers removing the last traces of Jun-ho's vision. Display cases reduced to bare shelves, the cafe area stripped to bare walls, the warm lighting replaced with fluorescent efficiency. But something catches her attention near the former checkout counter. A small succulent plant sits abandoned on the windowsill, somehow overlooked in the systematic erasure of everything Jun-ho built. The plant is wilting but alive, its leaves dusty but still green, surviving on nothing but stubbornness and filtered sunlight. She recognizes it immediately, the plant Jun-ho gave her during their third dinner together, a symbol of slow growth and patient cultivation. She'd brought it back to him the night they first kissed, a gesture meant to show trust in their developing connection. Now it sits forgotten, like everything else he left behind. Raven tries the front door, finding it locked, then walks around to the alley entrance. The door is propped open, while workers haul out the last of Jun-ho's inventory. She slips inside, moving toward the plant with the focused intensity she once reserved for hostile takeovers. "Excuse me, ma'am." A worker approaches, polite but firm. "This is a construction site. You'll need to..." "I'm Raven Caldwell, part owner of the new operation." The lie comes smoothly, backed by her natural authority. "I need to retrieve something." The worker nods, recognizing her name from news coverage of the merger. Raven scoops up the succulent, cradling it carefully as she surveys the destruction of Junho's dream. Her phone rings. Marcus, probably checking on integration timelines. She declines the call, focusing instead on the plant in her hands. Junho chose this particular species because it thrived through neglect, because it represented the kind of love that grew stronger through patient attention rather than dramatic gestures. He also chose it because he believed their relationship could survive anything, even the challenges that came with loving someone whose life moved at a different pace, in a different world. But Junho was wrong about survival. Some love requires more than patience and neglect. Some love needs active protection, fierce advocacy, the willingness to fight for what matters, even when fighting feels impossible. Standing in the ruins of his American dream, Raven finally understands what she lost when she signed Marcus's contract. She didn't just choose business over romance. She chose fear over courage, safety over growth, the comfortable prison of solitude over the terrifying possibility of happiness. Junho didn't betray her. He sacrificed everything to save his family, just like she sacrificed love to protect her empire. They're both casualties of their own nobility, both prisoners of obligations that seemed more important than their own hearts. The difference is that his prison has no walls at all, and hers has golden bars that she built herself. The succulent plant sits heavy in her palm, a living reminder that some things survive even when everything else falls apart. Some love endures even when the people who created it make choices that seem to destroy it. But survival and thriving are different things entirely, and Raven realizes she spent 8 years merely surviving when she could have been living. Standing in the empty space where Junho's dream once flourished, surrounded by the corporate efficiency that replaced his vision, Raven makes a decision that terrifies and exhilarates her in equal measure. Some mistakes can be corrected. Some choices can be unmade. Some love is worth crossing oceans to reclaim. The question isn't whether she can afford to risk everything for love. It's whether she can afford not to. The next morning brings revelations that change everything Raven thought she understood about Junho's departure. She's feeding the rescued succulent when her phone rings with a call from an unknown Korean number. "Ms. Caldwell?" The voice carries a slight accent, formal and hesitant. "My name is Min Jung-soo. I am Junho's father." Raven nearly drops the plant. "Mr. Min, is Junho... is he okay?" "He is... how do you say... heartbroken, but alive." The careful English carries weight beyond language barriers. "I call because my son would be angry if he knew. But I think you should understand the truth." "What truth?" "Why he sold his business. Why he came home to Korea." Mr. Min's voice grows heavy with parental concern. "My son sacrificed everything to save our family home. But I think maybe he sacrificed too much." The story emerges in carefully chosen words: the mortgage crisis, the medical bills, the impossible choice between family obligation and personal happiness. Junho's parents had invested their life savings in his American dream, then watched helplessly as their own financial foundation crumbled. "We never asked him to sell his store," Mr. Min continues. "We never asked him to give up his happiness. But he is good son, maybe too good son." "How much did you need?" Raven asks, already calculating solutions. 60,000 American dollars. But the man who bought Junho's business, Thompson, he offered much more. Too much more. Mr. Min's voice carries suspicion. "I think maybe he wanted more than just business purchase." The pieces click together with devastating clarity. Marcus didn't just buy Junho's store. He researched his vulnerabilities, identified his pressure points, then offered a solution too generous to refuse. The timing wasn't coincidental, it was strategic. "Mr. Min, would Junho accept help from me if I offered it?" "From you?" Surprise colors his voice. My son speaks of you like you are sunshine after long winter, but he also speaks like sunshine is too good for someone like him. The admission breaks something in Raven's chest. Jun-ho didn't leave because he stopped loving her. He left because he loved her too much to burden her with his problems. His pride, his sense of honor, his refusal to become dependent on her wealth, all became weapons Marcus could use against them both. Mr. Min, I need your son's address in Seoul, and I need you to not tell him I asked. The pause stretches long enough for her to worry he's reconsidering. Finally, I will send you information, but Ms. Caldwell? Yes? My son is very stubborn, very proud. If you come to Korea, you must be prepared to fight for what you want. I've been fighting my whole life, Raven says. This is just the first time I'm fighting for something that actually matters. After the call ends, she sits in her penthouse kitchen, staring at the city that once represented everything she wanted to achieve. Success, power, recognition. All hollow victories compared to the warmth of Junho's laughter, the security of his arms, the possibility of building something meaningful together. Her phone buzzes with a text containing Junho's Seoul address. A tiny studio apartment in Hongdae District, near the university where young artists and entrepreneurs chase dreams that don't always pay the bills. Raven opens her laptop and begins researching flights to Seoul. She has a merger to abandon, a business empire to restructure, and approximately 10,000 miles to travel to reclaim the only success that matters. But first, she has a call to make to Marcus Thompson, a conversation that will either free her from the golden cage she built or trap her in it permanently. Either way, she's done choosing safety over happiness, security over love, the comfortable prison of solitude over the terrifying possibility of joy. Some risks are worth everything, and Jun-ho is worth more than everything she's ever built. The confrontation happens in Marcus's temporary Atlanta office, 40 floors above the city where Raven first learned to choose business over everything else. Marcus sits behind an executive desk that probably costs more than most people's annual salary, his expression shifting from pleased surprise to calculating caution as she enters without invitation. Raven, this is unexpected. He gestures to the chair across from his desk. If this is about the merger timeline, this is about Jun-ho Min. She remains standing, needing the psychological advantage of height, and your systematic destruction of a good man's life for personal gain. Marcus's mask slips for just a moment, revealing something that might be guilt before his corporate composure reasserts itself. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Raven places a folder on his desk. Research she compiled during a sleepless night of investigation. You researched Jun-ho's financial situation, identified his family's vulnerability, then structured an acquisition offer designed to remove him from my life permanently. Business is business, Raven. If young Mr. Min needed capital and I needed retail space, you paid 4 times market value for a 6-month-old business with minimal assets. She opens the folder, revealing financial documents that paint a clear picture of manipulation, disguised as generosity. You also somehow learned about his parents' mortgage crisis, which wasn't public information. Marcus studies the papers with the careful attention of someone calculating damage control options. Due diligence requires thorough research. Due diligence doesn't require industrial espionage. Raven's voice carries the same cold fury that once terrified incompetent employees. You manipulated a vulnerable family to remove romantic competition. That's not business. That's sociopathy. Romantic competition? Marcus stands, moving around the desk with predatory grace. Raven, you signed our merger contract willingly. You chose business over whatever schoolgirl infatuation you developed for that boy. That man, she corrects sharply, was willing to sacrifice everything for love. Something you've never understood, even when we were together. Love. Marcus's laugh holds bitter edges. Is that what you call it when a failing entrepreneur targets a wealthy woman old enough to be his... Finish that sentence, Raven interrupts, her voice dropping to dangerous quiet. Finish it, and see what happens to our partnership. Marcus recognizes the threat, backing down from language that would have ended their business relationship permanently. But his retreat comes too late. Raven has already seen the casual cruelty beneath his polished exterior. The same dismissive attitude that made her feel diminished during their original partnership. "What do you want?" he asks finally. "I want out of our merger. Clean dissolution, no penalties, mutual non-disclosure agreements." She pulls a second set of documents from her briefcase. "I've had lawyers draft the papers." "That's not possible. We've already integrated operations, committed to expansion timelines. Then figure out how to make it possible." Raven's tone could freeze water. "Because the alternative is me going public with evidence of your predatory business practices, which would destroy not just our partnership, but your entire corporate reputation." Marcus stares at her as if seeing her clearly for the first time in years. The woman standing before him isn't the broken-hearted partner he betrayed 8 years ago, or the lonely CEO he manipulated into his current merger. This version of Raven Caldwell has learned to weaponize her intelligence, to protect what matters through strategic thinking, rather than emotional withdrawal. "You've changed," he observes. "I've remembered who I was before you taught me that love was weakness." She picks up the dissolution papers, setting them squarely in front of him. "You have 24 hours to decide whether you want to end this cleanly or messily. And then what? You'll chase after your Korean boy toy? Give up everything you've built for romantic delusion? I'll choose to build something better." Raven moves toward the door, then pauses. "Marcus, you're dying. You told me you wanted to build something meaningful before time runs out. This merger isn't meaningful. It's just another acquisition. But what I'm fighting for? That's legacy." She leaves without waiting for his response, walking toward the elevators with the same confidence she once brought to hostile takeovers. The difference is that this time, she's not acquiring something. She's freeing herself from a cage she didn't realize she'd locked from the inside. Her phone buzzes with a text from a Korean number. "Plane ticket is waiting at airport. Gate B7, Korean Air Flight 36. Leaves at 11:30 p.m. Your choice. Mr." Min has apparently decided that subtlety won't work with two stubborn people who are too proud to fight for their own happiness. Sometimes love requires a gentle push from people who understand that some risks are worth everything. Raven looks at her Rolex. 4 hours until departure. Just enough time to pack a bag and abandon the empire she built on solitude for the possibility of something infinitely more valuable. Some choices change everything. This one feels like coming home. The Korean Air flight touches down at Incheon International Airport at 6 a.m. local time, delivering Raven into a world that feels simultaneously foreign and familiar. Seoul spreads before her like a promise written in neon and possibility. Ancient palaces neighboring glass skyscrapers, traditional markets sharing streets with global brands. A city that has mastered the art of honoring its past while embracing its future. She's traveled halfway around the world on an impulse that would have terrified her a month ago, leaving Marcus to handle the merger complications while she pursues something that has no guaranteed return on investment. Love, it turns out, requires the same faith that built her business empire, the same willingness to risk everything for an outcome that exists only in imagination. The taxi driver speaks minimal English, but Junho's address transcends language barriers. Hongdae District pulses with youthful energy even in the early morning. University students heading to classes, street vendors setting up for the day. The kind of creative vibrancy that Junho tried to recreate in Atlanta. The convenience store occupies the ground floor of a narrow building squeezed between a coffee shop and a used bookstore. Above it, a single window glows with warm light, and Raven's heart hammers against her ribs as she climbs the external staircase to the second floor. Her knock echoes in the narrow hallway like a gunshot. The door opens to reveal Junho, wearing rumpled clothes and an expression of complete shock. He's thinner than she remembers, his face showing the stress of financial strain and geographic displacement. But his eyes still hold the warmth that made her forget to be guarded, still light up when they focus on her face. "Raven?" Her name sounds like a prayer on his lips. "What are you doing here?" "I came to bring you this." She holds out the succulent plant, carefully transported across 8,000 miles in her carry-on luggage. "You left it behind." Junho stares at the plant, then at her, processing the impossibility of her presence. You flew to Seoul to return a plant? I flew to Seoul to return something I should never have let you leave behind. She steps closer, her voice dropping to the honesty that terrifies her. Me. The admission hangs between them like a bridge spanning the distance between their different worlds. Junho's studio apartment is tiny, spare, furnished with the kind of efficiency that speaks to limited resources and unlimited dignity. But it feels more like home than her Atlanta penthouse ever has. You signed the merger contract, he says quietly. You chose your business over us. I chose fear over love. The correction comes without hesitation. I chose the safety of everything I understood over the risk of everything I wanted. Junho moves to his small kitchen area, filling a kettle with water. The universal Korean response to emotional complexity. And now? Now I understand that safety without love isn't safety at all. It's just an expensive prison with good views. The kettle begins heating as Junho searches for words to match the magnitude of her presence. Raven, I sold everything to save my family. I have nothing to offer you except 3 part-time jobs and a studio apartment the size of your closet. You have yourself. She moves closer, drawn by his gravitational pull. That's all I've ever wanted. I'm living paycheck to paycheck in a foreign country, working as an English tutor and a delivery driver and a night shift factory worker. This isn't the life you're used to. This is the life I've been searching for without knowing it. Raven reaches for his hands, noting the calluses that have deepened, the evidence of honest work that requires no apology. I've spent 20 years building an empire, Junho. I know how to create success from nothing. What I don't know is how to be happy. That's what you taught me. The kettle's whistle interrupts their conversation, and Junho turns to prepare tea with the careful attention he brings to everything important. Watching him measure leaves and monitor temperature, Raven realizes that this small ritual represents everything she's been missing. Mindfulness, presence, the art of finding meaning in simple gestures. There's something I need to tell you, she says, as he hands her a steaming cup. About why you really had to sell Hallyu Wave. Junho's expression grows guarded. I sold it because I needed the money. You sold it because Marcus orchestrated your family's financial crisis, then positioned himself as the solution. Raven's voice grows hard with contained fury. He researched your situation, possibly accelerated the foreclosure timeline, then made sure you knew about his offer at exactly the right moment to force your hand. The color drains from Junho's face as the pieces click into place. He manipulated the whole situation, from beginning to end. Your family's crisis was real, but the timing of the solution was calculated to remove you from my life. Raven sets down her tea, needing her hands free for this conversation. But Junho, there's something else you need to know. What? I dissolved the merger. Yesterday, before I got on the plane. She watches his expression shift from confusion to hope. Marcus can keep his $200 million. I'd rather build something meaningful from nothing than maintain something hollow built on manipulation. Junho stares at her as if she's announced plans to terraform Mars. You walked away from $200 million? I walked away from a prison disguised as success. She stands, needing movement to contain the energy coursing through her. Junho, I didn't come to Seoul to rescue you or solve your problems. I came because I finally understand what I want to build with my life. What's that? Something that matters more than money. Something that honors both of our dreams while creating space for new ones. Raven moves to the small window, looking out at Seoul's morning bustle. I want to start over here, with you, building whatever we can imagine together. The silence that follows her declaration feels pregnant with possibility. Junho stands perfectly still, processing the magnitude of her offer, the risk she's taking, the future she's proposing. You'd really move to Seoul? He asks finally. I'd live anywhere if it meant building something real with someone who loves me for who I am, not what I can provide. Her laugh holds tears and terror and absolute certainty. I've spent 8 years building walls to protect myself from exactly this kind of vulnerability. But you know what I learned? What? Walls don't just keep pain out. They keep joy out too. They keep love out. They keep life out. Raven turns from the window, her hands framing his face with infinite tenderness. I don't want to be safe anymore, Junho. I want to be alive. His kiss tastes like jasmine tea and second chances, like everything she's been afraid to want and everything she's finally brave enough to claim. Seoul's morning light streams through the small window, illuminating two people who've learned that some risks are worth the entire world. Some love is worth crossing oceans to find. 6 months in Seoul teaches Raven that success has many definitions beyond quarterly profit margins. She wakes each morning in Junho's apartment, now their apartment, to the sounds of the city awakening. Street vendors calling their wares, students hurrying to classes, the gentle hum of a culture that balances ancient wisdom with modern ambition. Their days have structure, but not the rigid scheduling that once defined her Atlanta existence. Mornings begin with Korean language lessons at the university, where she struggles with pronunciation but excels at business terminology. Afternoons are spent exploring Seoul's culinary landscape, taking detailed notes on techniques and flavor profiles that spark ideas for future ventures. Evenings belong to planning their shared dreams. The investor meeting went well, Junho announces, entering their apartment with arms full of groceries and an expression bright with possibility. They're interested in our cultural fusion concept. Raven looks up from her laptop, where she's been drafting business plans in carefully practiced Korean. How interested? Interested enough to fund a pilot location. He sets the groceries on their small counter, then pulls out his phone to show her photos from the meeting. Itaewon District, near the international community. Perfect for what we're building. The space in the photos is modest but promising. High ceilings, good natural light, enough room for the cafe community center hybrid they've been designing together. Not the corporate empire she once commanded, but something with the potential to matter in ways profit margins never could. Seoul Kitchen and Community, she says, testing the name they've chosen for their venture. I still love how it sounds. I love how it feels. Junho joins her at the small table they use for everything: dining, working, dreaming. Like everything we learned separately is finally coming together. The business model they've developed reflects both their strengths: Raven's expertise in operations and scaling, Junho's understanding of cultural bridge building and community needs. Korean-American fusion food served alongside cultural programming, business mentorship for other immigrant entrepreneurs, and space for the kind of authentic connections that large corporations struggle to create. There's something else, Junho says, his tone shifting to something more serious. I heard from my parents yesterday. They want to meet you, officially. The prospect of family meetings still makes Raven nervous, but it's the good kind of nervousness, anticipation rather than anxiety. Junho's parents have slowly warmed to the idea of their son's relationship with an older American woman, especially after learning that she sacrificed her own empire to build something new with him. When? She asks. Next month, when they visit Seoul for my cousin's wedding. Junho reaches across the table to take her hand. They're curious about the woman who convinced their stubborn son to pursue happiness over security. I didn't convince you of anything. We convinced each other. The distinction matters, and Junho's smile confirms he understands the difference. Their relationship isn't built on one person rescuing the other. It's built on two people choosing to create something together that neither could achieve alone. Raven's phone buzzes with a message from Atlanta. Sarah, who's been slowly rebuilding their friendship through careful conversations about trust and boundaries. The text contains a photo of Caldwell Artisan Bakery's latest quarterly report. Profits up 18%. Expansion steady. The business thriving under new management. Everything okay back home? Junho asks, noting her expression. Better than okay? Sarah's doing incredible work without my micromanaging. Raven shows him the financial projections. Turns out the business didn't need me as much as I thought it did. Maybe it needed the version of you who built it, but not the version who was afraid to let it grow beyond your control. The observation hits home with gentle accuracy. Raven's old approach to success required her to control every variable, manage every risk, choose safety over possibility at every decision point. Her new approach, building Seoul Kitchen and community with Junho, requires trust in partnership, comfort with uncertainty, faith that some outcomes are worth pursuing even without guaranteed results. "I got an email from Marcus yesterday," she says quietly. Junho's expression doesn't change, but she feels his hand tighten slightly on hers. What did he want? To apologize, and to let me know that his cancer treatment is going well. Raven looks out their apartment window at Seoul's evening skyline. He's selling Thompson Gourmet Foods, liquidating everything to fund a scholarship program for young food entrepreneurs. Redemption? Recognition that money without meaning is just expensive emptiness. She turns back to Junho, struck by how much her perspective has shifted in 6 months. "I think facing mortality taught him what I had to learn the hard way, that success without love is just another kind of failure." They spend the evening reviewing investment documents and dreaming about their opening day, but Raven finds herself studying Junho's face more than their business plans. Happiness looks good on him. The stress lines have faded, replaced by laugh lines that deepen every time she makes him smile. "Any regrets?" she asks as they're getting ready for bed in their tiny bathroom. "About which part? Selling my first business? Moving back to Korea? Falling in love with a complicated American woman who turned my life upside down?" "All of it." Junho considers the question seriously, which is one of the things she loves most about him. His willingness to examine even difficult truths with honesty. "I regret that it took a crisis to teach us both what we actually wanted," he says finally. "But I don't regret any of the choices that brought us here. Even the painful ones led us to something better." That night, as Seoul's neon lights paint rainbow patterns on their ceiling, Raven listens to Junho's breathing settle into sleep and marvels at how completely her life has changed. 6 months ago, she measured success in quarterly profits and market dominance. Now she measures it in shared laughter, collaborative dreams, and the quiet certainty of building something meaningful with someone who loves her, not for what she provides, but for who she chooses to be. Tomorrow brings another day of language lessons and investor meetings and the slow, patient work of creating something that matters. But tonight, in their tiny Seoul apartment that feels more like home than any penthouse ever did, Raven falls asleep planning a future that has nothing to do with individual achievement and everything to do with love that's strong enough to build empires. Raven just discovered that love isn't the enemy of success. It's the foundation for success that actually matters. What dream are you too afraid to chase because it might require changing everything? Dr. Thardi, Fechamento. 2 years later, Seoul Kitchen and Community hosts its 2nd anniversary celebration in a space that's evolved far beyond Raven and Junho's original vision. The Itaewon location now anchors a small network of similar ventures across Seoul, each one adapted to its neighborhood, while maintaining the core mission of cultural bridge building through food and community. Raven stands behind the main counter, watching customers discover the honey bread that's become their signature item, Junho's grandmother's recipe perfected through months of collaborative experimentation with Raven's technical expertise. She wears a simple black dress that shows her growing comfort with understated elegance, her hair pulled back to reveal the jade earrings Junho gave her for their first anniversary. The transformation in her appearance reflects deeper changes. The sharp edges that once armored her against vulnerability have softened into confidence that doesn't require defensive positioning. Success has returned to her life, but this time, it's built on partnership rather than isolation, community rather than competition. Eleanor Caldwell's voice interrupts from behind them. "I never thought I'd see you serving customers personally again." Raven turns to find her mother studying the organized celebration with the analytical attention she once devoted to judicial proceedings. Eleanor has aged gracefully in the 2 years since their reconciliation, and there's something in her bearing that suggests she's made peace with choices that once defined her life. "Mother." Raven's greeting carries warmth complicated by months of rebuilding their relationship across geographic and emotional distance. "You made it. I wouldn't miss seeing what you've built." Eleanor moves closer, her designer handbag looking perfectly appropriate among the international crowd. "Though I admit, when you first called from Seoul, I thought you'd lost your mind." And now? Eleanor watches Junho interact with customers, switching seamlessly between Korean and English, remembering personal details about regular patrons, treating each person with genuine attention rather than performative courtesy. Her expression holds something that might be recognition of a path she once abandoned. "Now I see why you chose this over what we had in Atlanta," she admits. "This feels real in ways corporate success never did." The admission costs Eleanor something, and Raven recognizes the courage required for her mother to acknowledge that the path she'd prescribed might not have led toward actual happiness. Eleanor's own journey toward understanding has paralleled Raven's journey toward love. Slower, but equally transformative. "James and I are getting married next month," Eleanor says quietly. 37 years later. But apparently some love stories don't have expiration dates. The news makes Raven's chest tight with joy. Her mother's reunion with her lost love, Dr. James Park, now a retired cardiac surgeon living in California, had seemed impossible when Eleanor first mentioned reconnecting with him. But love, Raven has learned, has its own timeline that defies practical considerations. "I'm so happy for you," she says, meaning it completely. "I'm proud of you," Eleanor responds. "Not just for building this," she gestures to the bustling community space around them, "but for having the courage to choose happiness over security." The words represent everything Raven once needed to hear from her mother, validation that choosing love over fear was strength rather than weakness. But she's moved beyond needing external approval for the choices that define her life. Speech. Speech. The crowd's chanting draws their attention back to the anniversary celebration. Someone has provided a microphone, and expectant faces turn toward the founders of Seoul Kitchen and Community. Junho offers Raven the microphone first, but she shakes her head, gesturing for him to speak. Some moments belong to the person whose dream created the possibility, whose sacrifice made the reality feasible, whose courage turned loss into opportunity for others. 2 years ago, we opened this place with a simple idea, Junho begins, his voice carrying clearly through the space. That food and community could bridge any divide, that success measured in relationships matters more than success measured in revenue. His eyes find Raven's across the crowd, and the love in his gaze makes her chest tight with emotion. But what we learned is that the bridges we built for others taught us how to build bridges between our own different worlds. Junho's voice grows stronger as he speaks. This place exists because 2 people decided that love wasn't the enemy of ambition. It was the fuel that made ambition worth pursuing. The applause that follows his words carries the warmth of community approval. But Raven hears something else in the sound. Recognition of a love story that's inspired others to risk their own carefully constructed walls. As the evening winds down, and the last customers reluctantly leave their warm, welcoming space, Raven and Junho stand together in the sudden quiet, surveying everything they've built through 2 years of collaborative dreaming. "No regrets?" Junho asks, slipping his arm around her waist. "Only that it took me 40 years and 8,000 miles to discover that some partnerships are worth any risk." Raven leans into his warmth, feeling completely at home in her own skin for the first time since her 20s. "What about you?" "My only regret is that we can't go back and tell our younger selves that everything works out better than they dared to hope." Junho's laugh carries pure joy. "Though maybe they wouldn't have believed us. Maybe the journey was necessary." Raven looks around their space. Part cafe, part community center, part love letter to the possibility of building bridges instead of walls. Maybe we both had to learn what we were willing to sacrifice before we could discover what we were meant to protect. They lock up together, turning off lights and securing doors, with the satisfied exhaustion of people who've discovered that success shared is exponentially more meaningful than success achieved alone. Walking home through Seoul's neon-lit streets, Raven reflects on the path that brought her from Atlanta's corporate towers to this moment of perfect contentment. She chose solitude to protect herself from pain, but solitude also protected her from joy, connection, love, and the profound satisfaction of building something meaningful with another person. Junho brought her light, Not by solving her problems or completing her incompleteness, but by showing her that vulnerability could be strength, that partnership could amplify individual gifts, that love could coexist with ambition when both people committed to mutual elevation rather than individual protection. The succulent plant from their early courtship thrives on their apartment windowsill, its growth steady and patient, proof that some things flourish when tended with consistent care rather than desperate control. Like their love, like their business, like the life they've built together through choosing courage over comfort at every crucial moment. Some love stories end with passionate declarations or dramatic gestures. Theirs ends with the quiet certainty of two people who've learned that the greatest risk isn't falling in love. It's choosing to stay open to love, even when it requires transforming everything you thought you knew about success, happiness, and the courage required to build a life that honors both practical needs and emotional truth. In choosing each other, they've discovered that solitude was never protection. It was just a different kind of prison, and they've finally found the keys. Raven Caldwell chose solitude for work until she met a young Korean man who brought her light. In the end, she learned that love doesn't dim success. It illuminates what success actually means.